We're going beyond the whistle with the first Beyond the Whistle Coaches Roundtable. Our roundtablers are Kevin Sutton, assistant coach at Rhode Island, and Randolph Childress, associate head coach at Wake Forest. This was the most fun I've had in my time podcasting. It's a conversation with three friends about our high school coach, mentorship, fatherhood, leadership, COVID-19, of course, and more. And if you are a basketball coach and would like to be on a future Coaches Roundtable episode, drop me an email at odell@mccantsports.com. That's odell@mccantsports.com. You can also find my email address in the show notes. Coaches Roundtable episodes will be panels of 2 to 4 coaches from men's and women's basketball from programs of all levels to discuss topics impacting the profession of coaching. I look forward to having you on a future episode of Beyond the Whistle. You are listening to Beyond the Whistle, the podcast that takes basketball coaches beyond the X's and O's to help you grow your network, make a plan for your career, and maximize your influence. Beyond the Whistle is brought to you by McCant Sports, a career management and consulting firm for college basketball coaches. Learn more at mccantsports.com. Welcome to Beyond the Whistle. I'm your host, Odell McCants, and thank you for listening. This is a special episode and the first of more to come. It's Beyond the Whistle Coaches Roundtable. And our first roundtablers are two very special guys. Rhode Island assistant coach Kevin Sutton, who I will now call a Beyond the Whistle regular, and Wake Forest associate head coach Randolph Childress, making his first appearance here on Beyond the Whistle. Gentlemen, welcome to Beyond the Whistle Coaches Roundtable edition. So first thing I have to ask is, how are you guys feeling?
For me, I'm feeling very well. My weight is down, and Randolph will tell you that, during the season, your weight kind of fluctuates, but my weight is stabilized. I'm eating better, eating at home a lot more, from the physical standpoint, doing some yoga, with my family, my young daughter, and some low impact, and doing a lot of push-ups and sit-ups. So from a physical standpoint, I'm doing extremely well. And then also from an emotional standpoint, continue to continue to do well as well.
Yeah, it's probably the most important part, the emotional standpoint. Now, Randolph, when we last saw you, man, you were in a sling. How are you doing these days?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm a little better. I mean, this is, unable to, I'll find out today. I'll do some video with the trainer, the doctor, to see where I am. I'm going to do a video conference and extend some rehab and see where I am, where I'm supposed to be. I guess he'll let me know, but I feel pretty good. I mean, I don't have my full range of motion. I don't have all my strength, but I'm out of the sling. I'm able to have normal activities, but I do lack strength. And, but again, compared to most, I'm doing well. I'm pretty active regularly and working out. So that's kind of, hurt me from that, but I could be in better shape, but, I feel great, and mentally, I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, now look, we're all getting old, man. Do you mind sharing us what exactly happened, Randolph?
Same thing you just said. We're getting old, man. You know what? I think I heard it lifting weights, and it's funny because I had all I had my issues and shoulder surgery with my left shoulder when I was in college playing, and I had multiple surgeries on my left shoulder, no issues on my right, and it was bothering me, and I kept working out and kept lifting weights and trying different things and training, and it got worse and worse. And it got so bad, I got used to dealing with pain, I guess. And I went to the doctor and said, hey, you got to take a look inside and tell me what's going on. This is bad now. And when I went, he said, you got your money's worth. You tore your rotator cuff and your bicep tendon.
Oh, man.
And you had a large tear. So I knew then, like, here we go. And he said, you have to have surgery right away, because ideally I wanted to push it till after the season. He said, no, we got to do it right away, because if the ligament isn't attached, you will never regain your strength. So if I can find something, he said, I didn't see it, but maybe there's something there that we can reattach it. We need to do it. And so we did it.
And now I wanted to hit you up because the first game I saw, you tried to still coach in the suit, and then I saw you go to the sweatsuit, man.
Yeah, man, listen. So, I had the surgery. The first game was just brutal. I mean, I had the surgery on a Wednesday, and we played on a Saturday. And so when I tell you guys, I don't remember anything about the game. I mean, I'm on the side. I had to
I
shoot.
can see it on your
I
face,
was
man.
so restricted. It was pulling my shirt out of my pants. I looked bad. It was just a bad look. And then the doctor looked at me and said, he said, listen, don't just wear a pullover or any type of shirt. You can't wear that coat and tie. And I went to Danny, and Danny said, man, be comfortable. Like, you can't, there's no way you can function that. You look uncomfortable. Travel and everything was just really, really tough for me that first couple of weeks.
So you guys are very special to me because we're all alums of Flint Hill School, where we played for legendary coach Stu Vetter. And for you, Kevin, you actually played for and got to coach with Coach Vetter, including coaching Randolph. So I know he's one of your living trophies. And
Absolutely.
What was it like coaching Randolph and being with Randolph back in high school? Can you share that with us, with him on the line here too?
Oh, absolutely. All three of us are very fortunate enough to have the opportunity to play at Flint Hill and play for, Coach Vetter. Like you said, he is a legendary coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach, and he instilled in all three of us a tremendous amount of values that we still have in our lives today and that we share with our families. So we're very blessed to have that opportunity. Randolph is my firstborn. That's what I tell everybody, and it's funny because they as parents, we all know that we're not supposed to, play favorites. But I make it really clear to everybody that he's my firstborn, and the reason why is we had truly, and it sounds like a cliche, but it isn't. It really happened. We had an instant connection, and I can just see it right now in my mind's eye. I came up to school, up to Flint Hill. Coach said we had a workout. A young man was coming over from Gwynn Park, high school. He wanted me to work him out, and he had been highly recommended by George Leftwich, who was a legendary coach in the Washington, D.C. area, that played with Archbishop Carroll with John Thompson Jr. And so they had from Gwynn Park, and they had just won the state championship. But this young man was coming over by the name of Randolph Childress. And I remember vividly that as soon as he came in the gym and put on his sneakers, and then we went straight to work, I knew he was special. I mean, I really did. I remember vividly when he was a very good listener, and he could follow instructions, and he picked up things very quickly. And I remember going through our shooting routine that I still do today, and we laugh because he still does it with his players at Wake Forest, the same exact routine. And I remember looking over at Coach Vetter with my eyes bugged out, saying, this, basically, nonverbal, saying that this kid is special. And he proved me 100% right. We went through the workout. He, dominated the workout. As a matter of fact, he dominated the workout, and then after it was over, we sat down and we talked. And I learned right then and there that he was so much more than just a young man that wanted to play basketball. That there was something to his character. He was highly motivated. He made eye contact when you were talking to him, and then he always had insightful questions. And I've come to learn that you can tell how intelligent a person is by the questions that they ask.
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, we had an instant connection, and we still are connected. And I we laugh because we talk every day. But yeah, he's my firstborn.
I can attest to that story. He does. I can't tell you how many people has come up to me and said, "Hey, Kevin Sutton was talking about you. He was speaking out in Vegas, or he was speaking here, and he says you're his firstborn." And I start laughing. I'm like, "Yeah. We got a history here."
And on the court, when I see all this stuff that Steph Curry does, I think I shared this with you once, Randolph. I tell people, man, Randolph was doing that stuff way before Steph Curry. Am I right, Kevin?
You know what? He was. I mean, no, nothing against Steph, but I mean, Randolph was just doing some things, back then that were just, sometimes I just shook your head. And I feel very confident in saying this next statement. as much as I think I made him a better player, he made me a better coach. And then I want to just share one story. We were playing in a summer league, the Eddie Saw Summer League, and it was up at UDC. And it was all the top teams in the Washington, D.C. area at the time. Carroll High School, who had Lawrence Moten, Sam. They had Charlie Harrison. They had Ben Stevens. They had a really good team. DeMatha had Kenny Blakeney, and you just could go on and on and on. And we were talented too. We had Randolph, and we had Corey Alexander, and we had Mark Ward, Marlon Williams, and a lot of young players, Serge Wicker and Jeremy Dean, that end up playing Division I basketball. But it was just Randolph made me a better player because we were playing in the semifinal game, and Mark Ward had stayed back in Roanoke and missed his transportation back to the game. Corey Alexander didn't play quite well and ended up fouling out. And so Randolph comes running over to me on the sideline, and he looks at me and he said, "What are we going to do?" Like that. I said, "You tell me what we're going to do." Just like that. And he said, "Put him in, and put him in." It was Marlon Williams, Jeremy Dean, and Donnie Douglas. And the last two, Jeremy Dean, all three of those guys were on my JV team. And I said, "Okay, well, you three go in." And lo and behold, Randolph we ended up winning the championship. We ended up winning that game and going on to the championship. And it was just it was foreshadowing of things to come, because that's the exact same thing that he did when he went to Wake Forest and they won the ACC tournament. He stood up in that huddle in the first that first television timeout and told Dave Odom who to sub in and sub out. I just turned to Coach Vetter. We looked at each other and said, "We've seen this before." And but yeah, he instilled in me a great deal of confidence. And so, every game that since then, every game that I've gone into, I've always felt that we were going to win, especially, the games that I was, the head coach. We're going to win. I mean, we're going to play hard. We're going to compete. We're always going to be prepared. And if it got close, we were going to win, because, hell, that's what we did all the time.
Going back to that, it's funny. Steph is obviously an all-time great. I think the comparisons, so people that are listening would understand. The one thing I will say, I understand the comparisons because of this. Most of the guys grew up playing. They could be great. They're either great with the ball or sometimes they're great without the ball. And we worked on doing both very well. So it allowed me to play. I was just a player back then. It was like, all right, you need me to play point. All right, I'm playing point. If I'm off the ball, I need to play off the ball. Movement off the ball. It seems that way because it's like a lost art. And Steph is one of the few guys that does that as the point guard position, today. I've asked some of the guys here, Chris to Ish to some of the guys who had to guard Steph, and they're like, man, he's nonstop movement. He's the hardest guy to guard. And I always think back to when we were in that Flint Hill gym, running around trash cans and moving without the ball. And then it wasn't just so. Credit to the coaches. I mean, we all talked about Coach Vetter and those guys, but I learned to play with the ball and I learned to play without the ball, and it gave me flexibility to be successful with no matter who I had on the court. And I think that was the key.
I'm sorry. Why do you think that's lost in today's game?
Because most guys don't know how to play without the ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. I think it's most guys don't know how to play without the ball. And you learn, you get to watch an NBA and you get to watch and not understanding how special and elite those players are. But guys working to do little things without the ball, it is a lost art, because most guys don't learn how to play until they get the ball in their hands, because that's all they train.
Yeah, and that's to Randolph's point is exactly right. That's all that they're trained how to do, is to play with the ball. And those coaches and trainers are not teaching, how to get open, how to set your man up, how to, move. And once you make one cut and you don't get the ball, you got to make another cut. You can't just stand and stop and just continue to beg for the ball. They're not teaching people how to, do all the other things that you have to do in order to get open and play and without the basketball, because a lot of it is because they train, one person in a workout.
Yeah.
And so everything is just centered around them and the ball. But what Randolph and I were doing, and when he was a junior in high school, is he would come to school early. I mean, and then he didn't live around the block. He would lived over in Clinton, Maryland, over in PG County, and I used to pick him up at the East Falls Church Metro station, and we would come in the school. And he's right. We would put down trash cans, and we started off, we had the trash cans we'd empty the trash cans out upside down, and we'd have them on the floor. And then as he continue to get better and start understanding, why am I backdoor cutting? Why am I fade cutting? Why am I curl cutting? Then we just start putting the trash cans out there with trash in it. And then I challenge him to, if you knock the trash can over, you got to pick the trash up.
Oh, man.
So from a conceptual standpoint, you could see in his mind that he knew I got to get close to the screen, but I can't, knock the trash can over or knock the screener over. I got to get my man on the screen. I got to put my man on the screen. So he learned how to move, almost like a skier on a slalom course. He knew how to get so close to the trash can, which we would say would be a screener or a defender. And it just translated and it carried over into his game, but those are the type of things that are not being taught. And they're not being taught at such a high level, like what Randolph said, because the kids are just taught how to play basketball with the basketball.
And, going back to Flint Hill, we hear the phrase coaching tree referenced to college coaches a lot, but I would challenge anybody to find a high school coach who has a coaching tree like Coach Vetters. And here's a list for our listeners. You two, present company first, as well as Nate James, associate head coach at Duke, Levi Watkins, assistant coach at Ole Miss, George Lynch, who I just had on episode 23, Cameron Dollar, a former head coach at Seattle University and now assistant coach at University of Washington, David Atkins, assistant coach with the Washington Wizards and a former national championship coach, University of Maryland women's team, and even Alan Stein, who's a former coach of Stu Vetter's with Stu Vetter, and then coach at DeMatha. And Alan is a great skills trainer, as we know, and has pivoted to a great motivational speaking career. And I may have left anyone off. I may have left someone off too.
Can I add a couple more?
Please do.
To that. You got Dan Preet, who's the head coach over at Bishop Walsh High School. You got Matt Johnson, who is the strength and conditioning coach out at Butler University, and he's fantastic at that. And so coaches, coaching tree. You got Rico Hines, who works with the Sacramento Kings.
That's right.
Rico. And then Coach Vetter's coaching tree is definitely he is a redwood tree.
Yeah. So what do you all attribute that to?
I attribute it to this, and I'll just tell you a quick story. When I was playing for Coach Vetter, he gave us all a great deal of responsibility. He used to run, camps, and I was 17 years old, and I had a route where I had to bring the campers to the camp. And then I had to take them home like I was a bus driver. Our whole starting five, David Atkins, John Sickles, Derek Sims, all of us, that was our responsibility. We had to drive the kids to camp at 17, 18 years of age. And then we had to work the camp. And then we had to drive them back. And then we had to be back up there for practice. And it just carried over to when I started to work, with him. He would just give you tremendous opportunities to grow. And then he would help educate you on, hey, you did this really, really well. I think you could have done this better. That was terrible what you just did. And it helped you, and he did it in such a way as a teacher. Both of he ran college level practices, but he gave his assistants a great deal of opportunity to grow. And then in the summertime, I was the coach of the team. Randolph will tell you, I set up the practices, whatever drills we were supposed to do. I was calling timeouts. I was, driving the bus to the team bus. Unbelievable responsibility. I ran, preseason and postseason workouts. He would sit in the stands and, drink his Coke and talk to all the college coaches. And I was out on the floor, running the workouts. So at a very young age, I was given a tremendous amount of opportunity for growth. And I'm where I am today because of those opportunities that he gave me.
I'll even add to that. And this, the only thing I will say differently, Coach Sutton, is when he got upset, you knew about it.
Yes.
And he made no mistake about that, buddy. He could give you a nice butt chewing when he got pissed. My goodness.
Yep.
At any point, anywhere, it didn't matter.
Yep.
I'll say this to you. This year with Brandon, it's so ironic we're talking about this. I was telling Brandon one time, I said, man, I remember in high school one time we were playing National Christian Academy, and coach was looking over at me to call a play, and I wasn't looking at him, and I was running my mouth over here, and he lit me up in that gym. Parents there in front of, he was at half court chewing me out. And I felt like I shrunk. Every word he said, I just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. Like I was trying to disappear on the court. And I'm telling you guys, as God is my witness, 30 seconds later, my phone rings and it's him. And I put him on the phone with my son. And I said, Coach, you would not believe the story I was just telling my son about it. But piggybacking off what you said, it wasn't just part of the players, coaches and stuff. He did that with his players. He put a tremendous amount of responsibility even on his players because he taught you a lot. And particularly for me as a lead guard.
Yes.
It would be, you have to learn what's going on. You need to know what everybody else is doing. You need to know what's in foul trouble. You need to know. So when I left for huddle, I knew there were multiple plays I needed to run. Now, obviously, he would always look and say he wanted to call something special, but I always knew he would remind me, hey, Kevin Sutton on you got 2 fouls. Or so-and-so is guarding George. They got 3 fouls. Let's get George going the ball. All right. Last time you called this, he would he'd give you the rope and allow you to learn, and obviously would correct you when you didn't. And just like that, he ran it like a CEO. And I think the most successful coaches run things like that. It allows everyone to grow when you do that, as opposed to the buck stops with him and they kind of, hands on and do everything. And I think that's why he has such a large coaching tree and so much success amongst his players. I mean, he's coached also some, he's coached some talented players as well.
So, Randolph, you mentioned Brandon, and you just completed a season that was Brandon's senior year, and What a development he had in his game in his 4 years at Wake. And I want to get into the experience of coaching your son, but first, take us back to his recruiting process, and what was that like as a dad, but who's also a dad who's a college coach?
It's always simple for me. I'm a dad. I love being a dad. I love being a parent. I love being a husband. It's just so for me with Brandon, it was easy. When he got to a point that ACC schools started recruiting him, and we were honest about it. I said, listen, you're going to be able to go wherever you want to go. I'm not going to force you and say you got to come and play for me. Be honest. And it's funny. There was only 2 schools I was ever worried about. Georgetown, because we grew up home, and Georgetown was one, and wherever Coach Sutton was. Those were the only.
And I was going to ask if you come calling Kevin.
Only 2 people that I knew I had to worry about. And if I saw him on the phone with Coach Sutton, I'm like, those were the only schools that I really was worried about. And so, and as his recruitment picked up, and you realized, what he could be. I remember, other schools actually helped me. I remember Sanchez, who's now at the University of Charlotte, was at Virginia at the time, and said, is Brandon coming to you guys? Because if not, I'm going to offer him right now. I'll take him at UVA. And Roy Williams went into the Carolina gym, to his high school gym, and he says, I'm not wasting my time with you because you're going to play with your dad. That accelerated the process of him coming to Wake. and he understood it, because then I had to explain to him how it worked from the coach's side. Like, hey, we're not into wasting our time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys, that's where it's different. You guys are into collecting offers and collecting offers and tweeting and talking about it. We're into the one that loves us back. We're into the one that loves us first. So that's how it works. So, it helped us because I was able to explain to him how the process worked from the other side. And I think the biggest line I told him was, I said, hey, we're going to take one point guard in your class. It's either going to be you, it's going to be someone else. If the first person that says they want it, doesn't matter, I'm your coach. Or you mean I'm your dad or not? You can't come here. And then afterwards, I think he thought about it, and then he made his final decision. But I didn't spend much time recruiting him. I mean, he was around the campus enough that the other assistants, Woodbury and Coach Manning, and those guys recruited him, spent time with him. He knew enough about it. But watching his growth was just it was special. To being able, you spend so much time into this, the hours and the time you put into this. It's special when you're able to have your family with you, because they're the ones who lack so much time. I mean, these are long, coaching collegiate sports is a long grind, and your family is as much a part of the journey as we are, and their sacrifices allow us to do it, and so having that extra time with him made it special.
I never thought about it that way. It's kind of like having a family business, and I know business owners, they always say when their kids are involved in the family, it's great to be there with them and see them, and to spend that time together, instead of it being something off, in the distance, and kids looking at it as something that, okay, it took my parent away from me,
Right.
Hey,
I want to add something to that. Randolph, he said it, and he lives it out, that he's always wanted to be a parent and enjoys being a parent. Okay, I can remember being at Stu Vetter's basketball camp and him running up to me and letting me know that he was about to, his girlfriend at the time, who ended up being his wife, okay, was pregnant with his first child. And I remember him looking me in the eye, and I said, all right, congratulations. Are you ready? And he said, I am. And I knew right then and there that he was going to be a committed parent, and he was going to raise his child, okay, to grow up to be a man. And then, so we speed the clock up. He's still playing, okay, and then he has to go overseas and build his career. And Brandon is growing older, and I would check in all the time to make sure Brandon was doing fine. I would always ask him, how's Brandon? How's the relationship? Oh, they've been over this month. They're coming back over next month. He always had his family close to him because they were that important. And every move that he made was not about himself. It was to put himself in a position and put his family in a position, okay, to have the life, okay, that he had always wanted to have for them. Then his playing days ended, and I'm the head coach at Montverde Academy. He brings Brandon down, and then Brandon's a little kid, and he's telling me how much he loves the game of basketball. And I go work him out, and Randolph sits on the side, and he's just chuckling because I put Brandon right through the same drills I put his dad through. But I talked to Brandon for a long time because I wanted him to understand that when his father wasn't there physically, his father was always there in every other way, and everything that he did was in preparation for this. Now that he's retired, he's going to be a part of your life, okay, and on a daily basis. If this is what you want to become, allow him to pour into you, okay? And he did. And the last thing that I'll share in this story, Brandon's very last game of his high school career, Randolph and I are in the stands, and we are both emotional because to see this son of a gun do the things that he's done, it's amazing. But it's all because Randolph has always wanted to be Brandon's father first, and then later on he said, you're talented enough for me to be your coach. And you can just see it. And I send him pictures all year long. My favorite time is when I was at Pittsburgh and we all were together at, right before the game, and they took a picture of Randolph, Brandon, and me. And the end of that story is Brandon goes down and makes 2 free throws and they win. and
we laughed about that game
oh
too.
my God.
You're not going to do that again, are you, Kevin?
You know what?
Funny about it, what really made it funny was they were fouling us and we were going back and forth, and guys were missing, guys were making free throws. And then when they fouled Brandon, it was kind of like, I was like, thank you. He was like, no, not him. Like, I know he's going to make a foul.
I was in our huddle. They were like, we're going to foul Childress. I was like, absolutely not. I was like, no. I said, foul anybody else. I said, no, you can't. No, he's just a freshman. I was like,
he's a freshman.
No. I was like,
yeah, foul him. Yeah.
Oh my God. He walked up to the free throw line like, really? Like, are y'all for real? And then he made him. And then after the game was over, he said, "Sorry, Uncle Kev." I said, "Don't you apologize?"
Yeah, he did.
Don't you apologize?
Oh man,
that was exactly what you were supposed to do. I was like, "Oh my God, not him!"
Wow. So Randolph. So Brandon comes to Wake, and when I look at it, I mean, you've got multiple dynamics here. So your father, assistant coach, but also you're not the head coach and your son is on the team. Right. So what was that? Can you share with us what that dynamic adding, Danny to the mix, who's the boss, and what was that kind of, I guess, triangular relationship, if you will? What was that like?
You know what? It's easy. You can think it's complicated, but I always say when you get in those situations, you just simplify it. And it was easy. Whenever we were on the court, I'm his coach and Danny's the head coach. So it's just simple. That dynamic didn't change no matter who was there or who was around. Head coach, and he's my boss, and this is his program. And so when we left the court, I was dad. Now, initially, that was a struggle, to be honest. I mean, Brandon couldn't struggle me getting on him as a coach, as a coach, and then come home and he wouldn't come home for dinner, or he'd say, "I'm gonna stay on campus tonight." All right, fine. Get over yourself. I don't care. You better separate the two. And then as he got over and understood that, then it just became our relationship. He grew stronger than it ever was. But we went through that transition of it. But in front of the guys, and I went through it with him. One thing he did tell me, or one thing in our growth together, was I took for granted how difficult it was for him. And that would be my thing I would say to any parent when you're dealing with your child or when you're coaching your child. When your child is in a locker room, particularly when they're younger, it's harder for them because guys are like, all right, are you going to come back and tell your dad what we say here? And I took that for granted. I took that for granted, and having him having him around.
Yeah, because we know how sacred the locker room is, and I can understand that.
Yeah, the locker room is without question, a sacred place, and Brandon did mature through that, and he would often, text me or call me, and we would talk through it, and then I would talk to Randolph later and separately. But then we saw it coming together, and then we were on a group chat. Brandon, me, and and Randolph. We would just group chat. But that was after he started to mature and could handle it. Could start to handle these things. But the biggest thing, that I saw in that, and I was in it, emotionally invested in it, because I love both of them. And I wanted it to be a success. But what I saw is Randolph's consistency, how he coached him, and then his consistency in how he parented him. There was no inconsistency at all. It was he was the parent when he needed to be the parent, and Randolph was the coach when he needed to be the coach. But the biggest thing that was instilled in Brandon at an early age was that work ethic. That anything that you want,
right?
Anything that you want, if you're willing to sacrifice and put in the work, okay, then you can achieve it. And Randolph and Danny and the Wake Forest coaching staff did not give Brandon anything. I mean, hell, his freshman year, he sat behind, Brian Crawford. Okay. And and on that particular team. And then he continued to work. He put in the work. He put in the work. He put in the time. He had success. He had failures. He went through that whole maturation process. And then the byproduct, the end product is what everyone sees now, but there was a instilled in him that a work ethic that if you work hard enough, okay, and you can achieve all of these things, and he did, and the credit goes to the kid. The credit goes to Brandon because he handled that situation, he matured, and then he took the leadership role when it was time to be the leader.
But I think more importantly, he followed too. I think that's the biggest thing. He learned how to follow before he eventually became a leader. And I would always say to him sometimes in the mistakes and the growth of all these kids, because they were all mine in the way I look at it. But sometimes when you can learn through someone's failures.
Yes.
And as well as your own, and as well as your own failures. And so we would talk about that. We were like, hey, if you don't like that leadership style, then that's not the way you should lead as that transition happens. So.
You know what, and that's a great point. Separately, Randolph and Odell, we've had this conversation that, people often talk about leadership, always talk about leadership, but we know that leadership and fellowship are equally important. You gotta be a leader, okay, and then when it's time to be a leader, and then sometimes you have to be a follower and waiting for your opportunity to become a leader. And like you said, Brandon learned, through people's mistakes that when he became a leader, he said, I'm not going to lead that way, when he was a follower. So to your point, I could not agree with you more. Leadership and fellowship go hand in hand.
Knowing the strong men that you two are, I know you don't let a lot of the outside noise influence either one of you. But when you're coaching your child, do you feel like it's easier when your child is one of the top players on the team or one of the lower players on the roster instead of that kind of middle? Because I saw what Tubby Smith went through with Saul at Kentucky, and it seems like there's more pressure when your kid may be third, fourth, fifth best player on the team, and they're playing too much. You know what I'm saying?
No, listen, I know exactly what you're saying. I lived it. I mean, that transition, it covered so much for anyone or at any level. I mean, you're talking about when Brandon commits and he comes in, he's 1 year behind Brian Crawford. And Brian Crawford is a heck of a player. So him committing to Wake and coming in, he understood what was already there. He just wanted to be a part of it. People are, it's like, hey, Brandon, you got to earn it. My suggestion to you is if you want to play, you might want to be the best defender early on, and that'll get you on the court.
Yep.
He came out there, he defended, he played. That was his role, and he embraced it and he took it. So it's always going to be that. And I thought it was on me to have the relationship with everyone else. But nothing was given to him. He had, like you said, you have to earn it. I mean, at any level, coaches don't play their favorites. They play their best players. They play the players that deserve to play. It's not because, Brandon didn't start when he got there.
Absolutely.
And had Brian Crawford stayed all those years, he still would have been there, and you'd have been back to Brian Crawford and until your time came. And if you eventually, got the better of him, then you would have played. If not, you would have been behind him. So it's it's just a matter of keeping, like I said, as complicated as everything gets at times with all the outside distractions. I learned to respect it. And once I understood what the kid or the young man was going through, it was when I said, hey, you got to block out the noise. And it was really hard for him because he played at a place where I was hanging in the rafters every day. That was the other added component to him. So he's always going to be compared to dad. And that was part of my issue with him. And originally he didn't want to come to Wake because there was some concerns about that. And I told him, I said, Brandon, the truth is you're going to be Randolph Childress' son, no matter what school you play in. The
Great point.
Always going to be there. So whether you're wearing a Wake uniform, you're wearing a Rhode Island uniform, it does not matter. You're going to be Randolph Childress' son. Embrace it. And then so when people always get on him and say, hey, you weren't as good as your dad, you know what? And I told him, I said, you know what, Brandon, I said, it's not an arrogant statement, but I want you to say this. You look at them in the eye and ask them, did they score 2,200 points in college? And did they win a conference championship? And did they go to 4 straight NCAA tournaments? Did they vote? Were they voted the top 50 players in that conference? I said, you asked them, did they accomplish that? And if they didn't, then you're in the same boat with them. So don't worry about it.
I like that.
I got tired of people. I couldn't defend him for it, but I also got tired of people holding him to a standard that you weren't holding everybody else to. So if you're going to hold him to that standard, then you hold everybody else to that standard.
I love that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
I love that.
And there is a parent lesson being taught right there, as well as a coach teaching a player a lesson. So there's the dichotomy that Randolph had to live in, and had to live out, and he handled it extremely well.
Yeah. And, listening to you too, I'm coming to, when it comes to relationships, keeping it simple and being consistent. And I think relationships get complicated and difficult when we don't do those two things, whether it's with our spouse or our child or our boss or whatever it is.
Outside distractions are always going to be there. It's always going to be there. And it's no, and like you said spouse. Well, it's one of those things. You have to learn. So many things are pulling at you, but I got to say, hey, all right, I got to date my wife. I got to take my wife. I got to make sure I'm continue to date, or I got to take her out to eat. Because when you get to a certain point, so many things come into play. If you don't make the time for it, then it just complicates things. And like I said, sometimes when things get hectic, you got to simplify it and get back to your basics.
And that comes with a self-awareness, knowing who you are, what are your core values, what are your principles are, what are your negotiables, what are your non-negotiable, what are your beliefs. One thing that I have really, really, tried to do is I read a poem by Theodore Roosevelt called "Man in the Arena," and it's such a great poem. It was part of a speech, but such a great poem because it talks about the outside people. It talks about daring greatly. We the business that we're in, Randolph and I are in, and for that matter, the sports realm too. There's so many people that tell you what you could have done better, the day after the game, and who you should recruit and who you, all these different factors, and they have an opinion. So, but people who spend their time worrying about the those type of people instead of the man in the arena that's getting his butt kicked on a daily basis. So, that's what you need to focus on. You got to focus on, the things that you can control, and the things that you can't control, you gotta simplify it by getting it out of the way. And you got to respect the people that are in the arena. If Randolph Childress comes to me and says, hey, how come you guys didn't call a timeout, or, how come we didn't run this play? I can respect that because, he's a man, he's in the arena with, he's a coach, he's in the arena, he's in there daring greatly, and he's getting his butt kicked from, time to time, but I can respect that, but the people outside, they're outside for a reason.
So as we're recording this on April 16th, 2020, we're still in the midst of this global pandemic from coronavirus and COVID-19. And when you all got the word that there would be no more basketball, I'd like to know what the scenarios were like and how you communicated with your team, because I know you both were at different scenarios. And Randolph, you guys had already gotten a game in the ACC tournament and probably not expecting any postseason play. And Kevin, you guys had not played yet in the A-10 and really, looking to play for something. I mean, win that tournament and really solidify your NCAA bid, which I thought would have already been, but I know you don't want to take that chance. So first, Kevin, first Randolph, with your season pretty much already over, what was that scenario and communication like when that word came down? What was it like for you and your players?
When it happened with us, we were headed to spring break. So it was like, hey guys, we went back home and we huddled up with our guys, and it was like, hey, let us know where you're going, be safe. But I'd say this, Mike, I was really concerned about it because of the amount of time I spent in my professional career in Italy and in Europe, and they were ahead of us. So I was getting all the information and everything that was happening over there, and I was scared to death because I was hearing and people, they were telling me, oh, it's going viral and you got to have masks. And we were at the beginning of it where you don't know hell, now you still don't know what to believe. But really at that time, you didn't know what to believe, and you were like, how bad was it? How can you contract it? And so on and so forth. So I was really concerned about that. And with our kids, I mean, everybody, you were like, hey, be careful. It was new. It's like, as you go home, just be cognizant of this. And so when you're dealing with a bunch of, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, I mean, their reaction was, hey, let's go to the beach. Let's just get away. Let's go hang out. Guys started doing it at the very beginning. And then over the coming days afterwards, it progressively got worse. And until when everyone got to stay home and really understood what we were, the pandemic we were dealing with.
Yeah. And Kevin, what was that like with you guys sitting there in Brooklyn?
I'm just going to go back a little bit and echo what Randolph said, because I too have some friends over in Italy, but also over in Europe, and then one of my host sons is over in China. So I, like Randolph, I was getting not two different, but I was getting mounds of information. My wife was actually, and so she was translating that to me. So I was just getting so much information coming from China, coming from Europe, and yeah, I was very, very concerned. And leading up to it, we had my when I say we, my wife and I, we had made a decision that my daughter and her were not going to come to the A10 tournament, and it was devastating because they wanted to come. They were looking forward to it all year. Last year, my daughter, she got totally into it. That's when she jumped into basketball, and she was so looking for it, and she was heartbroken and wanted to come. But we really had to sit her down and say, this is a very, very serious, potentially a very serious situation, and we got to err on the side of caution, and you guys can't come. And then when we practice, we always practice, and then we go we practice at Rhode Island, and then we caught the bus and drove the bus down to New York, and Coach Cox was just reading information the whole trip down, and then once we got there, he just said something doesn't feel right, something's just not right. And but we went on our normal procedure. Everybody went to the hotel, and then we came back down and we huddled up as a staff. And he just said, "I'm just not feeling, or everything I'm reading, I'm just not feeling like this is right." So then the team comes in, and this is where and Randolph and I had this conversation. This is where there's a huge difference between being a leader and being a head coach. David Cox became he's always been our leader and head coach, but he really became our leader right then and there. He addressed the team and told them what the schedule was for the rest of the night. Okay. But then he started all of us as a coaching staff and our sports administrators, once the kids left, like, hey, let's stay connected. Let's find out as much as we possibly can what's going on and make sure we communicate that, because we have to make a decision. I'm just not, feeling really good about this right now. And as the night went on, the NBA shuts down and the leagues are, taking their times here and there. If the A10 had not shut down, I'm not so sure that we would have played, because Dave really stepped up and was, he really stepped up as our leader. And then once we were literally about to start, the very next day we were about to start our total preparation for our opponent, which was going to be Duquesne, and it was my scout. But we were going through our film session. We met as a staff. And he says, hey, this is what I'm finding out from the athletic director, A10, and so he shared all that information with us. He kept our staff totally in the loop and asked for our thoughts and opinions and what have you heard, and all that information. And he processed it all, and was in constant contact. Okay, then our players came in. Again, he shifted right into head coach and was getting ready to, go right into, hey, let's get ready for Duquesne, Coach Sutton. And right before then, our sports administrator came to the back of the room and gave him a signal. And so he paused and he walked out there and he came back in. And that was when they had made the decision that the Big Ten was postponing their tournament. And then the A-10 postponed theirs. That was at 1:00. He said at 1:30, we will be leaving. We left at 1:30. And he showed tremendous amount of leadership. And for that, we were able to get everyone on the bus back to Rhode Island, met the next day and got them off campus into their homes. And that was the difference between what a leader does and what a head coach who's worried about the game and worried about playing and worried about the NCAA seeding and all that different types of stuff. He was a leader, and for that, I'm very, very thankful.
Hey, I don't talk politics on this show, but I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. But that's the difference between being president and being a leader, right? Yes, president, head coach. Hey, those are just titles, Those are just titles. Leadership is really about your character. It's about putting others first, compassion and empathy, all those things.
And about integrity.
Yes. So what has communication been like now with you all and your staffs, as well as you all and your players?
It's a lot of Zoom meetings. It's a lot of text messages, a lot of phone calls. And you're just trying your hardest to stay in constant communication, with everyone that you possibly can. That you, like you said, your fellow staff members, your academic advisor, your trainer, your strength and conditioning coach, athletic administration. We have an athletic all staff meeting coming up here next week. So you're just trying to stay informed and to have the maximum amount of information possible, so that way you can disseminate that information to your team properly, so they're not getting their information from, and these kids are just kids, so they'll do the comparing and contrast things all the time. It's funny because Randolph and I had this conversation last night, and since our kids are away from us, now the voices that they hear are they're hearing information from their quote unquote inner circle, but that inner circle is not privileged to the information that Randolph is at Wake Forest and what Wake Forest plans to do going forward, or what Rhode Island is planning to do. And so what you see all along, and you continue to see, is I'm doing what's best for me. And you see all these kids transferring and making these decisions. And sometimes those are just knee-jerk and emotional decisions because they're not a part of allowing themselves to get the information from the people who have the proper information that can help them make the right decision, the non-emotional decision.
Yeah, we're all doing the same thing. I mean, having a video meetings, having, conference calls and constantly, we're probably doing it a couple of days a week with our guys and with our staff. We're in constant communication, daily communication among coaches. Mm-hmm. So it's changed the way we're doing business. You're watching a ton of film. You're trying to figure out as much information as you can. You're holding out, thinking maybe this, maybe July, there could be some live period you can go out, but you really do not know. And right now you don't know how much it's going to change. And I do believe that it's changed for forever. I don't think it'll be the way it was, or it'll take a long time to get back to this. I think across the board for everyone, we're approaching something that's unique and different, and I don't know how it's gonna be going forward, but it's definitely going to be different.
Randolph, I think that's a great point, because I think we all need to come out of this better. We're going to come out of it. And right. as institutions, as organizations, teams, and individuals, if we don't take this time to get better, as individuals, develop a new skill or a side job or whatever project you've had, that you haven't completed. I know I'm getting a lot more podcasts out now. We all got to come out of this better. I saw a quote and I can't remember the individual's name now, but it's the quote was, "A crisis is a terrible thing to waste," and it's just about using time to get better.
Coach Sutton, you know this. We talked about this the other day. Initially when it first started, it was like the season ends. It was great. It was great to have, a little downtime, and then it began. We used to joke about it, and I'd be like, man, next thing you know, about a fourth or fifth day, it's kind of like, you kind of ready to do something, and then it got to the next week, and man, that honey-do list started kicking in. Man, I started doing stuff around the house, and I'm like, man, initially because my wife had to continue to work, and then when the second week she didn't have to work, and we were home, and man, my honey-do list was ridiculous.
Yes, sir, man.
Yes.
I'm like, I can't do anything else in this house. This is, my house is brand new now. I done so much work on it. But the best thing I can say about it, that in adding to what we talked about, was it was a great time to self-reflect.
Yes,
it was a great time to self-reflect and analyze yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I need to be better. I want to be better at this. Let's start implementing it. And so my schedule hasn't changed. I get up in the mornings, I work out, I watch film. I'll script everything out in the sense of like writing things down about, hey, I want to get this done. So I'm home, but I'm working as if I'm coming in the office every day.
Yes.
And still, reading more. I'm doing all the things that I didn't get a chance to do as much during the season. So every day it's just scripted. If it's saying, okay, I want to read this chapter, I want to, I want to watch this half. I'm dedicating that type of time to myself and to my family to make sure that I will be a better person when this passes over.
Yeah, I mean, and all of those things. I mean, for me, I'm trying to be more relevant in a positive way. Doing more podcasts, doing more virtual clinics, but and watching more virtual clinics. I always did that, but trying to grow and expand. And I'm reading different books than I normally read. Before I would read a lot of leadership books. I read a lot of, self-help books and not religious books, but Christian books. And my wife challenged me to spiritual books. Yes. To challenge me to, choose another, genre. And so with my daughter, she's read, some great books, and so I'm just trying to expand and, grow in different areas. And I'm trying to make memories with my wife and daughter so that we can take pictures. And, I sent Randolph a video the other day with me dancing, with my daughter, because I want to, when this is all over, said and done, and we go back through through my camera and through the videos, I want her to see and us to laugh. And, it's like, oh, wow, that was during that was during the corona pandemic, but I don't want her to have, I want to have a positive memory of that time versus a negative memory, because this is unprecedented, man. I mean, this is for me, being a 55-year-old, man, born in 1964, so when Dr. King was, shot, I was 2 years old, when the man landed on the moon. These are life, memories that I have when man, landed on the moon, when Ronald Reagan was shot, 9/11. Well, this is going to be her moment where she's going to like, hey, I was 10 years old when that happened, so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm present when I'm here, in every moment. But I do have to do like Randolph, schedule myself and be, departmentalize and compartmentalize the things that I have to do, because I do have a job to do. So.
Well, guys, I want to say this has been just an awesome episode, awesome time with you all. And I am so proud of the men you all are, beyond coaches, but the men and the parents you all are. And Kevin, I want to thank you. You've always been there, for us, Randolph, myself, and so many others of your living trophies. And just the way you live your life is always been an inspiration. And I just appreciate you all's friendship very much.
Well, I want to say this to both of you. You both allowed me the opportunity to be a mentor, and you allowed me to pour into you. The one thing that I've always wanted to do when I got into coaching is to be a ladle that pours into a person's bucket. I never wanted to be the ladle that took the water out of the bucket, but in order to be that ladle, the participant, the Odell McCants, the Randolph Childress, they have to be open and receptive to a person and allowing that person to be a part of their life. And so I'm honored, that both of you are, the men that you've become, and I'm very proud of the men that you've become. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for allowing me to pour into your lives.
So where can listeners connect with you all and follow you all? I'll start with Randolph first.
You know what? I struggle with that. It's not that I do. I know the big thing is social media, and I post, I show about my family, but I'm also, it's more, I'm very careful of what I do of my family, because so much of it with Brandon is public. And I get that, but I also feel like I have a wife, I have a daughter. I just feel a need to protect them. And my wife isn't a big social media person, so I need to do more for my career doing that, which is R Childress 22, R22 Childress on Twitter. And I take the time and I share things like that. Like tonight, my son will probably Instagram live our little family card game tonight and on IG. But I need to do more of that.
We're going to work, we're going to work on that, Randolph.
We're going to work on that. I'll be the first to admit I do need to do more of that, and I need to do a better job of what I put out and being more accessible to that. But
well, and also, I'm sorry, Randolph. But with me also with the whole social media, and I need to do a better job of it too. I like to be in the moment that I'm in, and I see people. Oh, let me get this out on Facebook. Let me get this out on Instagram. I'm going against what I want to consult people with, and there are ways to do it. But I like to just appreciate that moment with the folks I am with. So that's what makes it challenging for me. But we're going to help you on that.
It's funny you said that. My son taught me that. My youngest son taught me that, and what I mean by that is that everyone talks about Brandon because he plays basketball, and everyone sees that. My youngest son doesn't play. He struggled with the identity of that, but the one thing that he does, he enjoys the moment of where he is. If it's just noticing, oh man, those the trees over there, they're nice. And I'm just walking right past with oblivious to everything that's going on. So he celebrates he's the truly gifted one because he enjoys the simplest things in life. And it's just a reminder that, I'm a coach and I've done these things on the basketball court and Brandon's doing all these things. My son who hasn't played is the one that is so centered in understanding that, hey, it's the simplest things in life that you enjoy. So it's a constant reminder of that. And I know I got to do more of that, but I'm at peace with understanding that I like to be in the moment.
I love it. Yes. And Kevin, where can our listeners follow and connect with you?
On Twitter, it's at Coach Sutton. I have a couple blog sites. One is www.kevinsuttonbasketball.wordpress.com, and then www.suttonslivingtrophies.com. But those are places that people can find me on the social media.
Great. I'm going to have those links, including yours, Randolph, in the show notes.
I appreciate it.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been great. Stay safe, stay healthy. You all inspire me very much, and I'm sure our listeners will be inspired from this at all. And we're going to do this roundtable again.
We have to. Let's do
it. Absolutely. We need to do this again. They need to expand it.
Well, Randolph Childress and Kevin Sutton, thank you for being on Beyond the Whistle. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Whistle. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It's the best way to stay updated on the newest episodes. Beyond the Whistle is a production of McCants Sports, a sports executive search and talent solutions firm. To learn more about McCants Sports, visit mccantsports.com.